So it is spooky season, and what better way to celebrate the spooky season than by making a mini Halloween junk journal? So come along with me while I take this smash burger box. It is kind of a thin chipboard, similar to a cereal box. I don't eat cereal, so this is a lot more accessible to me. So you can take any kind of chipboard and cut it down to make a junk journal cover. In this situation, you can't get a large one out of a smash burger box. It's not as big as a cereal box, but I'm going to double up this cardboard and make it a little bit extra thick for the cover of this junk journal. The best way to get really sharp edges is by using a metal ruler and a really sharp X-Acto knife. You want to make sure that you get a nice clean blade. You want a crisp line, but you are going to be covering this with either paper or fabric, so if it's not perfect, you will be able to hide that imperfection. Now here you see me, I'm creating a spine. I am just using another piece of chipboard. It's not from the Smash box, but it is the equivalent in height and depth, whatever the weight of the chipboard is what I'm referring to. And I'm going to just glue two together just like I did with the cover and cut it down. The width of your spine is going to determine how many signatures that you can get in, how many pieces of paper. Now I'm just setting my finished chipboard on top of a piece of scrapbooking paper. This is a Halloween paper, about a medium weight. You don't want anything too thin because it will tear. Fabric will also work great for this project. Now I'm spreading just a little bit of my precision glue all over the top of it, a PVA glue, any kind of glue that will not warp your paper is best for this particular part of the project. And you want to apply that liberally to both of the cover, the spine, and the back page. And you want to make sure that you leave an equidistance between the front cover, the spine, and the back cover so that when the book bends, you have a little bit of space in between for the fold. And what's nice about this particular piece of paper that I've chosen is the back of it actually has this little grid pattern. So in a minute, when you see me trimming around about 1/2 inch to 1 inch around the outside, it makes it really easy for those lines to be straight. But remember, you're going to cover the inside of this, so you're really not going to see the edge of it. So if it's not straight or it's not the same equidistance all the way around, you're going to be covering the inside panel with another piece of either paper or fabric. So you really want to just smooth it down and make sure that it's completely adhered to that paper. Add a little bit of glue, about the width of the excess paper that you have there. And you are going to fold that over. One thing I forgot to do, I'm about to do here, is you need to cut at a corner angle there. You don't want to cut it all the way to your chipboard. You want to leave probably about 1/8 of an inch to 1/4 of an inch there because you want it to wrap around those corners. So I'm going to add a little bit of glue, I'm bending it, and I'm bringing that paper up around from the front to the inside cover. And I'm using my scoring tool to kind of push down. Some people have one of those little squeegees from their Cricut machine. I don't have one of those, so I'm just using my scoring tool. And I'm actually using it to score inside of those lines as well. I'm just continuing all the way around the outside. I'm going to do 2 sides first, and then you kind of see me using my bone folder there to kind of push those corners in. You want those folded down in before you fold your paper up. So now I am choosing my inside cover. I flipped it over because it's black and it's really hard to see your pencil lines. But essentially, I'm just going to mark that about 1/8 of an inch or maybe 1/4 of an inch smaller than the outside. So you will see a little tiny edge of that front paper flip down to the other side. You don't want to wrap around the outside because as you use the book, that paper might come up a little bit. So again, I'm just taking my UVA glue and I'm being very generous with it. I'm wiping it all over the cover so that I can put down the inside covers. And the way I'm doing it is I'm just using one long strip that will cover both the front, back, and the spine. You can actually do a different material on the spine and then do a smaller piece on either side if you'd like. So now I've actually only really adhered the right-hand side, which is the back cover, down first, because you do need to score that paper into that groove to make sure that it will bend inward with the spine. So I'm just using my bone folder here. You want to be careful. Again, I'm using a medium weight paper, so it's not super thin. But you still want to be careful and make sure that you don't rip that paper. I have done that before. And there are ways to hide it with ribbon and other things, but it's just best to try to really get that down into that groove before you continue on with the next side of the cover. Now that my cover is done, I am going to pick out some papers for the inside. I got this paper pack of Halloween 8.5 by 11 sheets of paper from one of those mystery boxes at Michael's last year. I got 3 of them and I have a lot of Halloween paper. It is not the thickest paper on the planet. It's probably just regular copy weight paper, but for signatures, it's fine. So I cut off the little top that they had on there down to 8.5 by 11, and then I'm cutting each of those sheets in half. So these are single-sided. They're white on the back side, but I'm going to show you later on in the video how I'm going to decorate that. So now I've taken a couple pieces of 12 by 12 paper, and these have like a design just on one end, and I'm actually going to kind of make a folder, if that makes sense, out of these. So I'm cutting them down to the height of the book, maybe a little bit bigger than the rest of my signature. I can't remember. We'll come to that later on. But I am trimming it down, and then I'm going to fold these up in a couple seconds and make folders out of them. Other half of this, the 12 by 12 paper, the other 6-inch piece, I'm actually going to cut that down. I'm not going to make it as big as the sheets that I just cut because those are going to be folders. So you'll see that in a minute. So these 12 by 12 papers were cut to the height of 5.5 and 6.5. So the 6.5-inch ones are actually going to be folded up from the bottom to be 5.5, and the other ones that are 12 inches wide are going to be folded in on the side. So how I do that is I fold the paper in half, and then I'm using my Fisker tool here. It actually has a scoring blade on it, that black blade, and I'm just going to mark it 5.5, and I'm going to score that, and I'm going to create this little pocket. So I fold that up, and then I fold it the other direction and cut off like a little sliver, and that gives me this cute little folder. So I'm going to repeat that with the other pieces. Now I'm going to speed through this a little bit, but essentially each one of those 6 by 12-inch pieces of paper represents the cover to each signature. So there's going to be 4 signatures in this. So right now all I'm doing is separating the different 8.5 by 11 sheets out so that I have different sheets of pattern paper in each of these signatures. And here you can see that that cover is about a 1/2 inch bigger than the rest of the signature. So we're going to fold those edges in on the bigger sheets of paper about 1 inch. I'm marking it here so I can kind of get it a little bit accurate. And that is going to be the cover of each of the signatures. Signature number 1 and on to signature number 2, putting all of my papers together. And this one will be the trick or treat cover. And I'm going to do the same thing. I'm going to fold those little edges in. This one I didn't measure. I just used the other pieces of paper to kind of determine where that edge was. Now these papers were a lot of fun. I believe I got this pack of papers. They're scalloped on the edge from the Dollar Tree. So I am going to work in these a little bit smaller pieces of paper into the signature in different spots. So I've glued this piece on with a little bit of this. I don't want anything thick because you can see through these thin papers. Just enough that I can keep it together while I run this through the sewing machine. Be right back. So I've got that. Now I could stitch along here again to close it. I might do glue. I didn't do it because I wasn't sure if I wanted to add ribbon or, you know, any kind of edging here just to make this pocket just slightly bigger. Oops. That one. All right, so we've got 1, a 2, a 3, a crunch. I want them to be thick enough that they make sense in this size of spine that we're using, but not so thick that we can't add embellishments to that. So you can kind of see how it's getting a little bit thicker. Once you add lace and tags and everything, it's going to start to get really thick. All right, we're going to add our little lace here. I am going to use double-sided tape. You could sew this on there. The reason why I didn't is because I don't want to lose this pretty gold. So instead of sewing it in between the 2 layers of paper, you could do that. But you would be sewing through this and you wouldn't see it. You could also sew it on top. I am just going to add it as fringe after the fact. We are just going to cover it up, this little edge here, and I'm going to go back, I think, and ink everything, and I'm probably going to use black, not vintage photo like I normally do, because you know, it is a Halloween album. I think the black would just look a little bit better, would match more with all of the papers. So what I'm not so worried about the edges here, we're gonna we can use double-sided tape here as well, just, or you can sew this down. Again, that's preference. You could sew it down beforehand. You can also, I think I might glue this. All right, so we add a little glue. Again, you can use double-sided tape or you can sew this in. Either will work. As long as you're using a good glue. You may have to you know, clamp this down. I got glue on the table. I can glue this down for a couple minutes just to make sure it stays. And then we're going to do the same thing on this side. Thing works. Is there a way to turn that? Oh, good gracious, that thing is strong.
Let go. So now you have a cute little pocket. Let's see, is that good? Yeah, so you probably want something relatively big in that pocket, so it doesn't kind of fall out because it's not very deep. Like this piece we talked about. Now this is a little bit too wide and it's a little flimsy. I'd probably use more of a tag, but the general gist, and it's because of the stitching, now it's a little bit too tall. Our signature back in there. So we should have about 12 pages in each one of the signatures now. And so I just have to add lace or trim or sew, whatever I'm going to do with these pockets as well. I could also just cut them off and then restitch if I don't decide I don't want to do pockets, but I kind of like the beginning of each signature to have to be a little bit thicker and to have something distinguishing the signatures apart. That's just a personal preference, but it doesn't really matter how you do it. But you can see that thickness. That's pretty good. So you've got a pretty even amount. Once you add more, this is going to start to alligator mouth open a little bit, but that's what we like when it comes to journaling. So I'm pretty excited. I think I just need to finish sewing these or gluing these shut, inking, adding any other more stitching that I want to add or any lace before I sew these signatures in. So let's work on that.
I decided since everything was white on the back that I was just going to take all of the signatures apart and coffee dye them so that they would be dark on the back side. So now I'm just going to work on decorating the cover. I'm just inking the edges to kind of accentuate everything and make it a really grungy. And then I'm going to add some beautiful black lace and some other embellishments to the cover. Now, when you're gluing on this lace, you can use PVA glue, you can use fabric glue. I'm using hot glue, it just works a little bit faster. You just have to be careful because it does seep through the lace. So I'm actually going to kind of cover that up using the fabric glue here because I realized that that hot glue is kind of coming through. I'm not really sure what kind of ribbon this orange ribbon is, but it's more like plastic, so it wasn't really sticking very well with the fabric glue. So here you can see me using just my regular PVA glue. I'm gonna stick that ribbon down and then I'm just gonna clamp it until it dries. Here I have a little swatch of fabric that I got from a swatch book at a garage sale. I'm just stitched a piece of paper on the front of that and I'm hot gluing it down to the cover. You want your cover items to be pretty durable, so hot glue I think works well to ensure that nothing comes off through wear and tear. Now I'm just going to take a piece of craft paper and I folded it in half and then folded it in half the other direction so I could find the center. And then I'm just punching all of the holes for my 3 signatures. And you really want to punch them from the outside in so that the messy side is on the inside. I did it the other way at first, but then I flipped the book over and punched it back the other way, just so that I can make sure that I got all of the holes big enough to get those needles in. So I am using a jewelry reamer for this, but you can use an awl or whatever you have to kind of punch the holes in there. And this thread is a wax thread. I actually got it as a huge pack from Goodwill, believe it or not, but they are available on Amazon. You can use embroidery thread, you could use yarn, you could use a multitude of different things here. I really like the wax thread, it's easy to thread on your needle. And this needle is a quilting needle, it's curved. And in my next project, I broke it, and I'm glad I did because these straight needles are much easier to use than these curved needles. It's just what I had that had a big enough eye to be able to put the thread through it. So you want to go in through the middle hole, through the cover, choose the top or bottom hole and go back through into the center of your signatures, bring it to the opposite side and then out again, and then you want to go back through the middle hole is what I'm doing here. And don't split your threads when you're coming back through that hole. You want to make sure you go around it. And I'm leaving everything kind of loose here until you get the last thread in, and then you're going to pull everything nice and tight. And I'm off camera, but you can use a pair of pliers to kind of help you pull that needle through all of the paper. Then I'm going to just trim that off, and I'm going to tie a bow here. You can completely cut that off. You don't have to leave a bow. I just think the bows are cute. And I'm going to speed it up for the other signatures. Now I have just the cover to finish. Now you can leave it the way it is. The strings look really cute with the little orange string there, but I would like to add a little bit of grungy lace to this. Believe it or not, this is actually a pair of pajamas that I cut up, but who is going to know that? Anyways, so I broke my rule. I'm using PVA glue here to put this down. I was tired of fighting that fabric glue and the hot glue. So PVA glue works just as well. Just give it time to dry, and I'm going to clip that on there so it doesn't go anywhere. And I am back with an annoying orange ribbon, but it's very pretty and glittery, so I'm going to use it. And we're skipping right straight to the PVA glue. I'm skipping the hot glue and the fabric glue again. So for the rest of the video, I'm just going to be decorating the inside pages and adding some tags and some ephemera. So enjoy the music and please stay till the end. Like, share, subscribe, all that happy spooky stuff. Have a wonderful day. Bye.